Good evening out there. It's Mike back with From Pain to Purpose podcast. Your host, Mike Melton, episode 11. And tonight I brought on a very, very special guest, one of my best friends. Been friends most of my whole life, probably over when I'm 50 now, had to be friends over 40 years. Was the one of the best men in my one of my weddings. And this brother just been there for me forever, man. Kyle Sleepy Carmichael, and he's in the building tonight to tell his story. How you doing, Sleep? What up, brother?
I'm good. What's going on, bro?
Nothing, man. I just want to thank you for coming on, bro, and being able to go out there and tell your story. I was so proud of you when you reached out to me and was like, bro, I think it's time that I go
Mm,
out and I tell my story, man. And I was proud of you because I know for a fact nobody in the public really ever even knew what you had went through growing up. You
mm.
know what I'm saying? And that shaped you into the man that you are today. So I'm just proud of you that you were able to come out and say, "Yo, I'm ready now to let the world know." You know what I'm saying? So, um, start out from the beginning, man. Like, what's your fondest memories of growing up in Trenton, New Jersey, when you were young, brother?
Oh man, coming up in Trenton, North Trenton, to be exact, growing up out there, you always gotta salute North Side, man. I wouldn't be North
Better
Side if I
believe
ain't
it.
holler that out first, you know what I mean? Um, it was it was fun times, it was a lot to do as a kid. You had the West Ward, you had North Trenton Little League. You had different programs that always just kept us busy as kids. And, you
Mhm.
always had the village to really provide, you
Mhm.
know, if you wasn't able to go to like those type of camps, like Boys Club, the Y, what have you, you had a village that will always provide something that's in your neighborhood park.
Mhm.
So, and then also if you didn't have that village, you had a bunch of friends that always get together, whether it was bike riding, whether it's playing basketball, football, baseball. We always did something, swimming in the summertime.
Mhm.
It was always something to do, and when we became teenagers, there was always jobs there in the city for us to do. It was
100%.
always things for us, not, just in our neighboring neighborhoods, but to develop relationships all across the city. So I
Indeed.
can leave North Trenton and go to West Trenton and cool out with my friends out there. I can go right North Trenton to East, the Wilbur section, the South Trenton. I had, friends, I have brothers all over the city, based off of sports camps, whatever. So it was a good time growing up in the town.
Indeed, man. Now, talk about how life was with your mother, man. Early on, you know what I mean? Her being a single parent, like take us back to those moments that you had with her.
Uh, um, life with my mom was cool. It was fun, man. From what I remember, my mom dressed very well. My mom was a dancer. My mom was fun loving. She was a trash talker. She was silly. She would always do things to make people laugh. She could dance her butt off. And she just was well liked, was loved.
Mm, I heard that. Yeah, I heard that.
She was loved from people in the neighborhood, people all over, man. Everybody really had love for my mom. And my mom had love for them. My mom was also a hairdresser. And
Mm.
my mom was, I remember my mom, going through hairdresser school, Wilford Academy. It was over there on Route 1
All
by the
facts. Yeah.
Brunswick Circle, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? I
Yep.
remember my
Definitely
mom
was up there.
doing that. I remember my mom also doing nursing school. So my mom had her hands in a little bit of thing. But one of the things that, I've always admired about my mother, watching her coming up, my mom had this gift to make people feel good, whether it was through
Mm.
doing hair, whether it was talking, whether it was entertaining them with dancing, just entertaining, period. My mom always had a gift to make, people feel good around her.
That's dope. That's a dope gift, man. That's a
Uh-huh.
real dope gift. Now let's get into it, man. Take us to the moment of like what happened with your mom that changed your life as a youngster forever, bro.
So, we just went through a pandemic, and we just went through a pandemic a couple of years back, probably what, like 2020. It's been 5 years, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, America had a couple of pandemics. One of the pandemics that America had that hit hard in in the country was the crack epidemic.
Mm.
And in the 80s that hit hard. You know, my mom got caught up in
Mm.
drug abuse. My mom became an addict in the
Mm.
80s. So I'm talking like around 86, probably 86, 87, a little heavy after my brother was born. My brother was born in 87, so it was a little heavy after that, and yeah, my mom was down bad. Like my mom was pretty, her and my grandmother was going at it. My grandmother was trying to do her best that she could to get her the help that she needed. But
Mm-hmm.
my mom was chasing that high at that time.
Mm.
And so she really wasn't, trying to hear it. And, it was what it was. It wasn't the only My household wasn't the only household that affected. It affected a lot of different households.
100%, bro.
So, and that was the first epidemic that my mother went through was drug use.
Mm.
So probably like around, let's see, I'm gonna say like around 88, 89. My mom got into rehab. My mom went down to detox on my mom went into recovery and detox on 541 East State,
Mm-hmm.
which is now a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother went, to rehab herself, detox her from that, detox her from drugs or what have you, and she became clean. She
Mm.
became clean. So that was, you know, back then, that was you had to be strong to do that, because pride would get in the way of that, and also ego, and a lot goes into that, especially from the family that I come from.
Yeah.
That's something that's not, normal in my family. So she went and got the help that she needed, and she became clean off of the drugs or whatever she rehab from the drugs. So that was a good thing. The second epidemic that happened that hit us hard, probably like in the early 90s, was the HIV
Mm-hmm.
epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember it quite well because it hit me through my mother.
Mm. Mm.
Um, it was around, I'll never forget it. It was around November. And what ended up happening, Magic Johnson had announced to the world that that he had to retire from basketball because he contracted um the HIV virus.
Mm-hmm.
That caused AIDS. And at that time, it hit because it was Magic, and Magic was loved across the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were educated on what HIV was.
At all.
And so in our minds, everybody thought that Magic Johnson was going to die,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
So this is how it shook me up. Probably 2 weeks after Magic announced it, my mom was at 541. I'm sorry, 541 East State. She was about to do a meeting. And I used to go with my mom, after I left school. So my mom, sat me down. It was me and her in that dining hall by ourselves. I'll never forget it. And I'm 13 at the time. And
Mm.
my mom sat me down, and my mom was like, I have to tell you something. I got to talk to you. And I just I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I need to be the one to tell you. And I said, what is it, Mom? you know, and that's when she told me that, she had HIV.
Mm.
And so at that moment, as a 13-year-old kid, now I'm in private school at the time. I got a lot of different things that I'm into that I'm around a whole lot of different people. You know, at that moment as a 13-year-old kid, I thought that I was going to lose my mother like
Mm.
immediately, like
Yeah.
it was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
inevitable. So after my mother told me, my grandmother kind of the best way that she could kind of put a band-aid on a blow. So like this is like in 91 when this is happening. I'm 13 years old. So let's do the timeline. So probably soon, a little soon after, my mother told me, um, I was going to Faith Christian at the time. It's in
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton, a Christian school in Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
Some way, somehow, it got out to my school community about
Mm.
what my mother had. Yo, when I tell you that, people that, I thought that were tight, that were close knit, that were friends to me, I sensed that as a 13-year-old kid, I could pick up people treating
Mm-hmm.
me different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, back in the day when you used to be on the phone with your friends, y'all all on three-way, y'all laughing it up, you figuring out what you want to, get into the next day or whatever. Just, just doing stuff that kids do.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, a lot of my calls was going unanswered.
Mm.
A lot of my friends' mother would pick up and say that my friends weren't available.
Wow.
And so, it kind of hit hard for me because I didn't understand, why people were treating me different. And
Mm.
so even, immediate family members was treating me
Wow.
different because, based off of what my mother had, they thought that I contracted it in some type of way. And remember, then we wasn't educated on how the
Uh,
disease can transfer,
yeah, from
how
person to person. Yeah,
right, how
indeed.
everything transfer and how everything can go down. So, that part went on for a while. And so then there was one recess I was in school, and I remember we were outside playing basketball, and a kid, he made a comment to he said pretty much it was a whole bunch of kids outside.
Mm-hmm.
And he said pretty much if we playing basketball with Kyle, we got to use rubber gloves.
Mm.
So at that
Wow.
moment, I said, What did what wait, what happened?" And so next thing I know, I hauled off and I punched this kid in the face
Mm.
for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that time I was on the verge of getting kicked out of that school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pastor, Pastor Martins. And the person, that kid that I punched in his face happened to be his son
Wow.
that made that comment.
Wow.
So Pastor Martins is ready to kick me out of the school, period. It was going to be done and over with, null and voided. The principal, Mr. Sam Barfield, a white man, Mr. Sam Barfield, he stepped up for me, and he stepped up for me and he had my back. And in that moment, probably like the next day, they had a special chapel for me.
Wow.
And Mr. Barfield called me at the front, and it's in front of the whole school. And he put his arm around me, and he made an announcement. Hold on.
Take your time, bro.
he made an announcement to the whole school that we going to stand and support Kyle through this. And if anybody has anything negative to say about me or my mother, that they were done.
Mm.
And at that moment, I needed that support. I needed to hear that because
Mm.
it helped me. That part helped me to make it through the school.
Mm.
So like this was now we're in 92. So I told you that my mother let me know 2 weeks after Magic, which was 97, which was November of 91.
Mhm.
So now we're going into the spring of 92.
Mhm.
So moving into that point, if you can remember, the Magic start becoming a spokesman for HIV.
Facts.
So Magic was walking around healthy. He was talking about coming back playing basketball. Magic was providing hope, right? So I see Magic on TV providing this hope. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see that when I saw my mom.
Oh.
I saw my mom slowly suffering. I
Mm.
mean, she's up, she's got all her things or whatever, but I seen stuff that was coming, that was pretty much slowly killing her. I seen
Mm.
it. I seen my mom start to lose weight. Seen my mom get shingles. I seen my mom running through the hallway screaming because of the pain of the shingles. This is
Mm.
all the stuff I'm witnessing. But every day I'm seeing Magic beating this thing.
Mm.
So in my mind, I'm like, I was Magic Johnson beating this, but nobody's not helping my mom. So that part kind of really, like, I really started developing resentment in my heart, and I start like, yo, this is crazy. I didn't know what to do at that point. So now 92, we're going and we're going and we're going. My mom's getting worse. It's getting worse, getting worse. November of 92 come. This is where everything starts for me. I had a relationship with my great grandparents, my grandmothers, my grandma Gladys' parents, my grandfather, my pop Love, and my grandma Minnie. So it's the same time my mom is going through what she's going through, my grandmother, my great grandma Minnie has Alzheimer's.
Mm.
So she starts suffering. Now I had a relationship. I was close to my great grandparents. When my brother was born, I was right at my great grandparents' house on Phillips Avenue. Like
Mm.
I've
Mhm.
always had that type of relationship with them. So now we get to November, my great grandmother dies.
Mm. Mm.
That probably was like was the first significant death in my family. For me, my
Mhm.
great grandmother dies. So that was the first death. Like my other great grandmother died in 87, but I was really too young for it to hit me hard. This is my grandfather, my grandma Carmichael. But when my grandma Minnie died, that kind of shook me up. That was the
Mm.
first death that actually shook me, rocked me. So now I'm dealing with that. And then every day my mother is suffering and suffering and suffering. So then my great grandfather, who I was close to, my great grandfather, I remember this again, this is where it all started. I remember my great grandma's funeral, and we're walking down the steps with her casket, and we're about to put it in a hearse. And my great grandfather walking down the steps, it screams out, "I'll see you later, sugar." We put her in a hearse. So speed it up. Now we get to 93. My mom's condition is getting worse. My mom is starting to really lose weight. Mom losing her hair. My mom's not able to walk. My
Mm.
mom's starting to, it's starting to like really slowly creeping in, right? My great grandfather turns around and died on Valentine's Day in 93 of a broken heart
Mm.
because of my great grandmother he was married to for 72 years.
Wow.
Second significant death in my family, right? So then now my mother, right after that, my mom started getting bedridden. Like, she was in a wheelchair first and foremost. You got bedridden. Like in my old house on Brunswick, it had a big picture of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
When my mom was in a wheelchair, like the people down there, Detox had did something in honoring of my mom, and they kind of wanted her to see it while she was here because they knew that her time was inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I didn't understand that her time was coming to an end. So, back to my great grandfather, he died 93, Valentine's Day, bury him. After we bury him, my mom's condition started getting worse and worse and worse and worse to the fact of where I had to walk downstairs. My mom laying in a hospital bed in my living room on Brunswick Avenue. Like you've been there, so when you walk in, it's the whole open
Mm-hmm.
area.
Mm-hmm.
My mom hospital bed was there. My mom used to lay there, and she used to sense that I was there. And it was times that my mom was in so much pain that she just wanted to take herself out. It
Mm-hmm.
was, Power, give me the scissors. She would cuss me out for not giving her scissors. You know, I had to start my day off going to school every day, seeing my mother laying there suffering, and I couldn't do anything about it to help her. Right.
Uh, what's going through your mind, like in that aspect, and with your father not being there? So now, like, that's a double edged sword, and you still gotta go to school. You still gotta try to get grades. Like, how you managing all of this? Like, basically, like being by you had your grandparents there, and thank God they was there. But what's going through your mind? Because the grandparents being there, but it's nothing like your parents. So
Right.
what's going through your mind at this point with both parents? Like your mom is going through what she going through, and your father not being there.
You know what really kept me going?
What up, bro?
My little brother.
Wow.
That kept me motivated because I felt like I needed to protect him.
Mm.
Right. So I felt like I needed to really be there for my brother. See, me and my brother had different dads. My brother dad was in his life. My brother had his dad, Big Mike. He had his grandma man. Big Mike, me and my brother's dad was real fly. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
So he had that aspect of Big Mike, you know what I mean, was there for support. And one of the things that, my grandmother made sure, and I don't know if it was, it was a good idea because it kind of created our bond that we have today.
Mhm.
But one of the things that my grandmother made sure was that, you know, we weren't separated, like we
Mm.
remained together.
That's
And
big.
so, seeing my mom going through this process or whatever, my mom dying slow every day, I had to tough it out. I had to like really consume it. And
Mhm.
I couldn't wear my emotions on my sleeve at that time, had to go to school, catch the bus, do what I do. But based off of what was going on with my mom, my grades were slipping in school.
I bet.
I just had so much going on mentally, and I felt like that I had so much, you know, mentally on my back at that time. And at that time, what am I? At that time, I'm about 15 years old in '93.
Mhm.
So I'm 15 years old. So now, fast forward, I got through Faith Christian in June, got through the summer. I go to the Bridge of the Future program at Hun.
Mhm.
I'm doing all these things, and I really, I really barely made it out of eighth grade.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because of the stuff that I was dealing with when it came to my mom. So my my grades suffered so bad because the plan was for me to go to Hunt.
Mhm.
But I suffered so bad from my seventh grade year to my eighth grade year. that, like I said, I barely got an eighth grade, and I couldn't get into Hun because of, they didn't look at my circumstance. They just looked at the grade aspect of, what's he doing in school or whatever. Like, even my grandmother begged and pleaded, for men to take a chance on me, and they
Mm-hmm.
didn't. So that's how I ended up at Trenton High. But what happened with me, getting to Trenton High and setting me up, it was the Morrisons who stepped up for me. Mrs.
Mm.
Morrison and Mr. Morrison
Mm.
um, stepped up for me, and Mr. Morrison, um, M really stepped up and kind of set me up and kind of made the adjustment from what I was dealing with to high school, like going into high school. Like him and his wife, him and Mrs. Morrison used to come and get me and let me spend time with their sons and let me spend
That's
time
dope,
with his
yo.
family. Like I remember Mr. Morrison's mother, and just giving me that extra support that I needed, and I skipped over some people, from Faith Christian that also stepped up and really
Mm.
helped supported me, John and Barbara Coleman. They was real
Mm.
integral in my they was real integral in what I was going through. And so Mr. Morrison kind of helped me. So going into that September, I ended up at Trenton High.
Mm.
Um Again, my mother's condition was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it got so bad to the point to my mom got mad small. She couldn't see no more. She lost
Mm.
all her hair. And I
Mm.
gotta see this movie. I gotta see this horror movie, this real live horror movie every day before I go to school.
Mm.
And so it's like, I come from a private school. I've been in private schools damn near all my life. So I come from a private school. So it got out in that small community. And my mind of thinking is, what if it get out? Would I go to Trenton High? And I'm in this big school community now where it ain't the same emotional feel as it is in a smaller school, right? But the people who knew my family knew what was going on, but it never and got out to the point to where it was like, people didn't want to rock with me at Trenton High. So, September, and it still was tough. I still wasn't doing my work. I I just was just going through the motions, man, because I didn't know what to expect from a day in and day out basis, right? So, get through September, cool. Get through October, cool. November hit. November '93 hit. My mom in and out the hospital, right? Mom in
Mm.
and out the hospital. Don't know what's up. Mom in and out the hospital. So that second week in November of '93, around November 11th of '93, I'm over a friend's house. I'm over my mom's girlfriend house. Was Robin, she's like an aunt to me. Me and her son was close out of Hamilton. I was out there for the weekend. I was, chilling with him, doing what teenagers do. We play video games, we go outside and hoop, we ride bikes, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? The
Mm-hmm.
normal thing at that time. So that Sunday was Robin left me and Bobby at the house. Me and Bobby went, hooped and did everything, we do. So I can remember Miss Robin walking back that afternoon, like emotional, but I couldn't put a finger on why she was emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember her calling Bobby out the room, and I guess in that moment she told Bobby what happened to my mother and told him not to tell me, they're gonna let me know when I got home. when she takes me home. So I remember Miss Robin took me to another friend there, another friends that my mom was friends with, and they were both friends with on Ray Street.
Mm-hmm.
Sat there and we ate dinner and everything, and everything was cool. It was a normal vibe. So then I remember Miss Robin, all right, taking me home. It was like a long process. Like I don't like it just felt like something happened, but I just couldn't
Mm-hmm.
put a finger on it, right? So, you know, driving up the hill to my house. Um, you know, Miss Robin parked her car. I remember her taking a deep breath and was like, "You ready, Kyle?" I was like, "Yeah." So I'm going in the house. I'm going in the house across the street. She parked in front of the pool. So I go walk across the street. I start seeing um you see all these people on my porch,
Mm.
like going into my house. So I'm like, hey Kyle, hey, how you doing? You know what I mean? And so when I walk in the house, mad people in my living room, and again, like been in my crib, so the
Yeah.
living room was open. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? Man, it was mad people in there. So I'm still not putting it together. Like, yo, what's going on? So then I remember my grandma walk out to the living room. I get like by my steps, like behind my grandfather's recliner. And my grandma come out and she was like, "Hey." I was like, "Hey grandma, what's going on?" And she was like, "You okay?" And I was like, I'm cool. I'm just wondering why all these people here." And so in that moment, my grandma gave me a hug and she looked at me and she said, "Kyle, your mother is gone."
Mm.
And so I said, What do you mean gone? Like going to go get help, going to go get better? Like, what do you mean gone?" And so she looked at me and she just couldn't figure out to say, like, "Yo, your mom died." So she had to
Mm-hmm.
reword it because now you got to remember, this is her youngest daughter that she's burying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she had to reword it to where I received it. When I tell you, I stopped what I was doing, and I just took a look around the room, and I looked at everybody's faces. Everybody just dropped their head
Yeah.
because I guess in that moment they didn't know that I didn't know.
Yeah. So
And
now you.
so when I looked, I
Yeah.
said, "Yo, this is probably the first time I ever cussed in front of my grandmother." And I said, "You gotta be fucking lying to me." And that's my was
Wow.
my response.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just darted out the house. I darted out the house, and when I ran, I I like I ran for so long. It's like anybody that really knows me, they know when I get pissed off, like
Mm-hmm.
just run because I don't know what else to do. So from my house, I ran to the Trenton Makes the World Takes Bridge, and I just sat there dangling. I sat there, with my feet I just sat on the ledge of the
Wow.
bridge, just crying
Wow.
profusely because I never felt pain like that before. I never felt, I never felt that I was going to come home and find out that my mom was dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, some way, somehow, one of my cousins had found me and they brought me back home. And, from that point, you know, from, the situation with me leading up to me seeing my mom in the box and closing that casket, covering up. Yo, that was probably one of the toughest things I had to ever deal with.
Mm.
And I had to do it at 15.
Mm.
So in that moment when I was, a key moment when I remember when I was at the casket and I was covering my mom up, I was up there by myself, or so I thought I was. And I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. So my Mike walks up to me, and Mike is 6 years old at the time. We're 9 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike told me that he said he said Mommy's gone, but I'm here, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta watch me. You gotta take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that motivated me to try to be the ultimate, like the best big brother that I could be for him.
Wow. Yeah.
And so when people never really understood why I was so overprotective of him,
Mm-hmm.
and coming up when he was coming up as a teenager and as a kid, why I was so overprotective of him, why I was crazy over him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is why. He was the only thing that I really had that was close to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
And
definitely
so,
understand.
like, I watched over Mike with like an iron fist.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was rough. It was times to where I wanted to give up because I'm the only one in my crew, out of all my friend circle, out of everybody that's close to me, that they had a moms,
Wow.
right? And so, like, like dad's not living in the crib was something that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't
Mm-hmm.
unusual.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody had their moms, and I didn't. So whenever I go to my friend's house, they got their moms. Mother's Day, they got their moms. Moms at the games doing this. And what made it hard for me, what really made it hard for me, nobody didn't know how to relate to what I was going through because didn't go through it.
100%. I definitely
So
can relate to that.
when
Yeah.
we live in an age of mental health, and you have X, Y, and Z saying that, oh, I what that's like. This is what my mental health was like. My situation was a one-on-one
Yeah. Back then, especially.
back
Yeah.
in the early
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
Man, dude, I had my friends couldn't relate to me, their parents couldn't relate to me, my family members couldn't relate to what I was going on. My grandmother made me go to therapy, and the therapist didn't know what to say to me
Mm.
because it was an unusual situation that I was dealing with. So now I had, the love of my grandparents, my grandmothers especially, to where they put a band-aid on a lot of my trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right? They put a band-aid on a lot of my trauma, especially my grandma Gladys, to
Mm.
where she provided a safety net for me, to
Mm-hmm.
where anytime I fall, she was there to catch me and to pick up the pieces and to help me, stay afloat, not to fall too deep,
Mm-hmm.
but to stay afloat. So that that and bro, I'm baffled. Like, I'm not baffled, I'm rambling, and I'm crying because
No, I understand.
this is the first time I've ever come out and I've told anybody what I've dealt with, you know, when it came to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real emotional thing for me. I'm fighting
Man,
through it
that's
and
what
I'm
we
praying
here
through
for,
it.
bro.
And
This what this platform is for, man.
so excuse me, if
Nah,
I
bro,
pause for a minute.
this what this platform is for. You get the from the pain to your purpose. We're gonna get to your purpose too. And you don't know how many people that's probably listening that you're helping right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
That went through similar situations and think there's no ending to it. You know what I mean? Now you're on the other side of it, but this is your story, this is your testimony, and you're getting it out there right now. You know what I
One
mean?
thing that I respect about my mom, and I respect, and I think this is where I get the ultimate fight and the resilience from, that even through my mother's pain,
Mm-hmm.
my mother didn't go back to her vices and
Mm.
use that excuse to go get high
Mm.
again.
Wow.
You feel me? Like,
Wow.
it could have been
Yeah.
easy for her to know that, and what you witness a lot of folks do,
Mhm.
to where I'm gonna die anyway, so forget it and just go back to the devices. But through all the pain, all the times I heard my mom scream, holler, and cry out, my mom never asked to get high, bro.
Mm.
And that
Wha-
was real motivating for me, to
Mm.
where I looked at that situation and I looked at two things. My mom never asked to, get high again. Then my mom never questioned God in that
Mm.
moment of pain,
Mm.
in her moments of pain.
Mm. When when you going into your late adolescence year, young adult years, you know what I'm saying? We linked up heavy. Um, when I went to college and when I came home, we really, really linked up heavy. So, we did a lot of ripping and running and things of that nature. How you feel like that affected you socially during those times? And how did you feel like it affected you in relationships with women, like not having your mom there when you was that young, like through your development through those years, through those teenage years and things like that? How you think that loss affected your relationship? And
I think it really affected me tremendously because, in our, where we grew up at, and the way we grew up, you know, we were used to single mom homes. It is what it
hmm
is. So
hmm
we really never really had the example of a man to really show how to love a woman the correct way, right?
facts,
The
facts.
example of the man that I had in my household was my grandfather,
hmm
but both of my grandfathers, right? But what both of my grandfathers did, they worked, 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 just to take care of home and take care of everybody.
hmm
See, like, my grandfather worked so much that, my grandfather just come home and just give my grandmother a check, and then she do everything when it came with that. My other grandfather, nickname was OT Willie. All he did was work.
mm
So they worked, they worked, they worked, they worked to provide it. So they really wasn't never in home
hmm
to really, show how to love on a woman. Hell, both of my grandfathers, they never go on vacation until well after they were retired. They was damn near 60.
mm
And so I didn't see that part. I just see them work and just come home and just give my grandmother's a check. And so that was the example of a man I had, and it kind of messed me up because I had my grandmoms, both of them, who spoiled me to death.
hmm
So in relationships, that's what I was looking for.
mm
You know what I'm saying? Being spoiled by women.
mm mm Makes
And
sense.
I felt that that's in my younger adult years, that's what I needed to get by. And I was put in a lot of situations where I had to be a man, but I didn't know how. All I knew was how to do was work. But you know, when a relationship, it comes with spending time
Mm-hmm.
doing nice things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, romance and courting and all that. All I
Facts.
saw coming up was working. Work, 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 work.
Yeah. Um, I was thinking about this the other day, like listening to some old songs and stuff like that, and thinking about like when did it click to me about learning how to be intimate with a
Mm-hmm.
woman without being physical though.
Mm-hmm.
Like it always was a catch to it. It always was a catch to it, especially in the beginning. I'm gonna do all the intimate stuff because I'm trying to score. And then when I get in a relationship, I'm only doing intimate stuff, waiting for the finish. You know what I mean? Waiting for what I'm gonna get on the end point. Like I was trying to figure out like at what age did it click on me that it was cool just to be intimate without expecting something else on the back end of it. You know what I mean? So I could definitely can relate to that point of view. What kind of help did you go out and seek for yourself to finally turn that corner and start developing to the man you are now?
So when I went through my divorce, it was a
Hmm.
situation that happened where, you know, I ain't gonna really get into it, so I'll just say a little bit, but it kind of put me in a situation where a humbling situation where it kind of stripped me down and it cut me to the white meat where I really had to sit, you know, on my steps and really have a conversation with myself, have a
Hmm.
conversation with God. And in that moment, I was doing therapy, but I just was there going through the motions. I really didn't dive into my therapy the way that I was, you know, doing needed to in a premarital counseling session or whatever. But after that moment, I decided to myself that yo, I'm gonna dive into my therapy because I really need to address everything that's happened to me at this point
Mm.
because I've never addressed it before.
Hmm.
See, when people think of me and when people see me, when people, you know, and like, you know, in the social world, they would say, yo, sleep cool, sleep funny. You know what I'm saying? He made the life of the party, he X, Y, Z, whatever you may have to say, right? But people didn't know that behind all that, yo, I was in pain
Yeah, I know.
because
Yeah.
I had it was a snowball effect of things that I had inside that I really never addressed.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I really never sat and I never really addressed. I pocketed how I felt when my mom died. I
Mm.
pocketed the things that I went through before she died.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I pocketed how I felt when my grandma Gladys died. And anybody
Mm.
that really knows me or really is close to me, they would tell you that, and you included, because you was with me when I pulled up to your mom's house the day my
Yeah.
grandmother died.
All facts. I still got that picture. Still
And
got that picture.
it felt like
I still
my
I still
whole
got
my
that
whole
picture.
world, my whole world was over at that moment. You understand what I'm saying?
I still got
Like,
the picture. Yep.
yeah. And so it was like what like I didn't know whether I was coming or going. So all that stuff in that moment when I really just had to sit there and I felt like, yo, I worked so hard for this. I worked so hard for this situation, but the outside it's just like being loyal to something that yo we gave vows to, and I felt betrayed in that moment. I felt belittled,
Hmm.
and only person that I could really lean on is God, and just get the help that I needed.
Mm. And that's sometimes in life he puts us in that corner where the only place we can lean on is him, because he needs us to come to him at that time. And he know if
Hmm.
he gives us other mad outlets and things of that nature, that we're gonna not come to him. So he makes it where that you ain't going nowhere else. You know what I mean? What was what was a couple of the most alarming things that you learned about yourself in this process that you didn't know before?
That I was the main thing that I learned was that I was afraid to address my pain,
Mm,
because remember what I went through at the time that I went through it, nobody can relate to me and tell me how to help me.
mm,
Like nobody didn't know how to help me, right?
mm-hmm,
So, and that kind of built a wall inside to where, yo, I don't want to open up. I want to address this because you might say the wrong thing to me, and then that may discourage me from getting this out.
mm-hmm,
And like I said, once I did that, I realized that, I never let my mother go.
mm,
I never let my grandmother go.
mm,
Like I never, like, my one of my, I could tell you that losing my grandma Gladys, that was probably the toughest death that I ever encountered, because, my grandmother ended up suffering from the same thing that her mother suffered from,
mm.
dementia, Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in that moment, I was going, one of the hardest things that I had to ever do in life, two hard things. Two of my hardest things that I ever had to do in my life. The first hard thing I had to do was to sign my grandmother over to the hospital for the last time, when I
Mm,
knew that she wasn't coming home, because I was taking care of my grandmother every day. My grandmother was living up on Parkway in a Park
mm-hmm.
Place in the senior citizen community. I was running back and forth every day,
I
and it was
remember.
wearing on me. It was
I
wearing on
remember.
me, right? And so my grandma would be fine when I'm there, but now I'm young. I still got to go to work, and I still got, at this time, I got college. She's a baby. I got to support her. I got to do all these things in my life. So when I would leave, my grandma would wander off. So they would call me, and I would have to come get her. And so one of the hardest things was when I took her to St. Francis, and I had to sign her over for the last time, knowing that this was it. And
Mm,
I went into me and College mom came with me. I went in the elevator and I collapsed in there and cried like a baby, because I was like, damn, I always want to put myself in a position to where, I always want to take care of my grandmother like she took care of me, right? But you know what I mean? I physically couldn't.
mm-hmm.
So in that moment, I felt like I felt. And if you know anything about me, and I know you do, I hate to lose.
Facts. I
So
definitely know that.
I hate to lose.
I definitely know
So
that.
in that moment, I felt like, yo, I ultimately lost. So, getting into my grandmother's story and my grandma's trauma, I'm just me, spewing out, because it's literally me sitting in that therapy unpacking, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my grandmother was she was up on Brunswick Avenue in a rehab center, old folks nursing home,
Mm-hmm.
whatever as you will call it. My grandmother, my grandma was vibrant. My grandma was always
Yeah.
happy. My grandma was loud. My grandma was fun
That's
loving. My
my
grandma
girl.
was all these things, right? So when I went to go visit my grandma one day. I visited my grandma every day. Every day I went up there to spend time with my grandmother. My grandma, it got to the point that my grandma memory was shot. She only remembered me. She only knew who I was and who Kyla was.
Mm.
So when I would go out there, she was like, Kyle, I can't watch Kyla today. I was like, nobody asked you to watch Kyla today. I'm here to bust you out. And she started laughing, and she was like, "Kyle, I can't go nowhere."
Mm.
I was like, "Don't say that." I was like, "I'm busting you out of here." That was our joke.
Mhm.
So one day I came up there, and my grandma was in the TV room on her floor in a wheelchair. And she said, "Kyle, sit down, let me talk to you." Second hardest thing I had to do. So I said, "What's up, grandma?" So she talked to me normally, and she asked me, at the end of our conversation, "Kyle, I want to ask you something, and this is going to be hard for you to answer." And I said, "What's up, grandma?" And she asked me permission to die.
Damn.
She said, "Kyle, I'm tired." She said, I'm tired. I've been taking care of people since you've been born. I took care of your mother. I watched over your grandfather the best that I could. I was you." He was like, "I want to go home, Kyle. And will
Mm.
you be okay if I go home?" At first, I didn't know how to answer it. And she said, "Kyle, will you be okay if I go on the rest? I'm tired, Kyle. I'm tired. I can't live like this. I'm tired, Kyle." And she was like, "But if you're not okay, I'll still keep fighting."
Mm.
And in that moment, I told her, "I understand." Um, I said, I would be selfish to keep you here like this.
Mhm.
So whenever you're ready, I'll figure it out." I said it like that, right? So mind you, I'm going up there every day to go see my grandmother. It just so happened one day I missed because I was working overtime. This was I was doing social work at Bo Robinson. I worked overtime. I was over there. I stayed overnight because I was catching up on some things. So you can't take your phone in the facility.
Mhm.
So when I came out and I checked my phone, it probably was probably like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was late. So I came down and I checked my phone. Um, I had a missed call from my Uncle Bruce, my mom's brother, 3 something in the morning. So I called him back and I said, "It's good, oh." He was like, "Hey man, what's up? This and that. I just got back from this big city, Uncle talking to me." So 5 minutes go by. I'm looking at my phone. And so I said, "You called me 3 something in the morning to tell me about your trip to Elizabeth City." And I asked him, "What's really going on?" And so he got quiet, real quiet.
Mhm.
And he was like, he couldn't like really get up because everybody would expect me to crash out.
Mhm.
Like, with the news of my grandma being gone, everybody they knew that it would affect me the most. Both of my uncles did knew that it would affect me crazy because it's like losing my mom all over again, right?
Mhm.
So my uncle Bruce, probably like at the 30 seconds, told me that, mom passed away. Um, they're waiting for you to come up there, and they're not going to move her until you come up there, and then you know they do what they have to do.
Mm.
So in that moment, it gave me the respect, and I touched my grandmother until I got there
Mm.
to see her, and say my goodbyes. And when I went in and I saw her, she was laying there, right? And my grandma had the biggest smile on her face, bro.
Wow. Yeah. That would be
Like,
her. That would be her.
she
That
had the
would be
biggest
her.
smile on her face, and she
That
was
would be
just
her.
at peace. But like I said, I was still, young. I was in my early 30s, so I'm still young. I understand what it's hitting for, but I didn't want to understand. You understand what I mean?
I
Bro,
remember
like,
I remember you went through a stretch where you was somebody else, and with the stuff going on in the leagues. you just had some outrage. I just saw the anger. I saw a whole other side, and some people that we was close to at the time, they was feeling some kind of way, and I sat them down like, y'all got to give him some grace. The brother then lost everything, bro. And I asked him like, how would y'all feel just having no parents at all? And this was before you and your dad got tight, you know what I mean? And I'm like, how would
Mhm.
y'all feel? Like you don't know what he's going through. Like he don't got nothing. And that's why he's acting out like this. And this one I'm still deep in addiction. This one I'm still going through the situation with the case. You know what I mean? I'm deep in
Mhm.
alcoholism, but I still understood why you was acting the way you was acting. And I told them that they had to give you grace because of what you was going through, man. Like that was
Bro,
a lot to handle.
my whole life literally went up in flames. And it started from when the house caught on fire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, when the house we had the house fire, that's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
my whole life spun there. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? That's
Mm-hmm.
what I do, all I do. But I took
Mm-hmm.
my grandfather to go see the house. He was in a rehab at the time, recovering from a surgery. I never seen my grandfather. My grandfather's one of the toughest jokers I've ever met in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up with my pop Mike, right? I probably only seen my grandfather cry 4 times in my life before he
Mm-hmm.
died. Four.
Mm-hmm.
When his mother died, my mother died, when my appendix burst and they thought I was going to die,
Mm-hmm.
when when I was out of it, I woke up and I saw my grandfather looking over me crying and told me in
Mm.
his words, "Motherfucker, you better not die on me."
Mm.
And that's my grandfather
I
said
know.
that to me. You know what I mean?
I know how he
And
was.
I'm like,
I
And
know how
then,
he was.
before my grandfather died, he was crying. And he said, I asked him, I said, is you okay? And he was up at St. Francis. And I said, you good, Pop? He was like, I'm a Carmichael. I ain't scared of shit. And he said
Mm.
it with his tears going down his eyes. So
Yo,
that's
you
why I
got
was
a
like,
you
yeah,
got a light in there you could just turn on to stay
yeah,
on
I got
because it's starting to get dark.
hold on, I got you. This better?
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%,
Oh, my
100%,
bad.
100%. No,
So
no, no. I
yeah.
just saw it. I just saw it doing it, and
Yeah,
I
man, my
wanted to be
bad. I had
good.
the blinds open. But yeah, so that's when I seen my grandfather in that state, I knew that you know what I mean, he was at the end of his race. But
Mm.
yeah, my grandmother, when my grandmother passed, you touched on the acting out. Like in that stretch, man, I was getting banned out of leagues.
I remember.
I was doing the most, bro, but nobody just really never like stopped and was like, yo, what the hell is wrong with you? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was
I knew what
drinking it.
was wrong. I
Yeah,
knew what was wrong.
I was drinking 1,000 miles a minute.
Yeah, I
Like I
remember.
wasn't sleeping. Like I was just doing the most because like I was crashing out, as these young kids would say, because my grandma Gladys was my world.
Mm.
And in that one, it was hard to accept and it was hard to let go.
Mm.
Even from her funeral, taking her out to the cemetery. And like I said, anybody that's close to me know that spent time at my house, that,
Mhm.
just like really, really spent time with me, is really a close friend of mine. They know like my grandmother was like my world. Like my grandma, I was her shadow. Like that's what
All
she
fa-
used to call me.
all
And
facts.
when she passed, bro, it was a spurt where I just didn't care about nothing. I didn't care about nobody, nothing, and people didn't understand. And again, like I said, we were at that time, we was at a point where mental health really wasn't like, we
A
ain't talk
thing.
about mental health,
Yeah.
and mental health didn't really like exist in a black community because we were too prideful to be like, yo, go get help. And that's with anything academics. You think I'm stupid, you think I can't read, I'm stupid, or
Mhm.
you needed just help for your emotional pain, right?
Mhm.
We was too prideful to get that. Man, the help I need is in that Ciroc bottle. I'm going
Yeah.
over there and I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And Mobb Deep
Mhm.
had a
Drink
song
away the
on the
pain.
infamous that drink away the pain.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what we did. But after, that drinking, everything wear it off, that pain still sat there. You
Mm.
feel me?
Mm.
So it, you know, Gladys was a hard one to get through. I really didn't let her go until after I really started seeking therapy for myself.
Now, once you got into the therapy and it, when did you started to see like a change with you moving towards your purpose?
When I start dialing back on my vices,
Mm.
when I really start putting my focus on coaching, I got into coaching heavy,
Mhm.
and you know that became a passion for me.
Mm. Mhm.
Doing the things that I was able to do, be a part of at Trenton Catholic, and also, getting a chance to experience, following in my uncle's footsteps,
Mhm.
coaching at Trenton High.
Mhm.
I looked at that as purpose. I looked at that as teaching. And, basketball has always been a passion for me. And basketball really helped me get through a lot of the things that I was dealing with in life. Like it was always basketball. Like
Mhm.
any troubles I had, basketball, I go hoop, I go get it off. I can go somewhere and shoot. I go do these
Mhm.
things. So as I got older, I found myself teaching the game, and not only teaching the game but trying to encourage boys and girls, because I coach girls, but I've also had a hand in the boys basketball. Any basketball player that really played in the city, I always found my way to give an encouraging word to
Uh-huh.
where, and I mean, to try to push them. Yo, it's my numbers, bro. You need me, holla at me. So it was always about, helping or giving the words of encouragement to the kids in the city, that came up, like me.
Mhm.
So I felt like, you know, in a sense, God gives us all his gifts, right? And God calls us in different ways,
Mhm.
to his ministry, right?
100%.
So, and I think that God take our gifts that we have to affect people, like to really go out to minister to people. So it's like I think God uses basketball for me because he knows that it's a passion of mine, and he knows that I'm able to help people. I'll give you a quick story. It just happened
Right.
yesterday.
Mhm.
I'm refereeing, right? I'm refereeing in the AAU tournament,
Mhm.
girls game. This girl probably in this a ninth grade game.
Mhm.
Team was down 14 points. They come back tied at the end. The little girl is on the foul line. She's shooting free throws to win the game. She skunked both of them, missed both of them. Games goes into overtime. She's on the bench crying profusely, like the world is over, right? Just crying. I see her crying. Now I'm an official. I'm a referee. But I've always got encouraging words to say to a kid.
Mm.
I pulled that kid aside and I said, "Hey, it's okay. Short memories.
Mm.
Forget about what happened at last possession. Now figure out how to win.
Mhm.
Don't worry about that. Have a short memory." So a tip ball comes up. Girl gets the ball. She gets a quick steal, makes a pass, gets an assist. Team gets the lead. come down. So they're going back and forth, back and forth. She gets another key still, right? Missed the layup, gets fouled, makes one out of two foul shots. The team comes down, get a foul, tie the game. She gets a steal, layup, get fouled at the end on the foul line with a tie, with a chance to ice the game. She iced the game for her team to win the
Mm.
game.
Mm.
So as she's shaking hands, she come up to me and I grab both of her hands and I look at her and I said, remember, take this wherever you go. Short
Mm.
memory. And
Mm.
she said, thank you.
Mm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? In those moments, you don't know what you do or what God puts over you to affect others.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that through all my pain, trials, and tribulations that I've gone through, basketball has always been a common denominator in my life. And so I was always able to use that either for myself or to give to somebody else. You know what I mean? So I feel like, and still under construction, but I feel like that God uses what he's given me with basketball to kind of be my purpose to
Mm-hmm.
minister and help others.
Mm-hmm. Also, too, you going through that thing, parents not being there, then losing your mom at that age, losing your grandparents, and some people will use that as an excuse to not step up their responsibility, but you did the opposite, man. Talk about being a father to your twin. That's your twin right there.
Mhm.
Talk about being a father, man. Like being there really, 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 really in her life. Like she lived with you like you really her father. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause some people put the pictures up on Father's Day and this, and like talk about the transformation of what you went through and how that fueled you to being a father, man.
So I always had this thing when I was younger when, I promised my mother that, if I'm ever blessed to be a father, that if me and the mother's relationship goes left, you know what I mean? I'm always going to be hands on
Mm-hmm.
with my kid, right? Well, Kyla, I remember when Kyla was born, Kyla was a preemie.
Mm.
So Kyla came out, she was like 2 pounds, but 19 inches long. And see, they had to go in and get Kyla. Her mom
Mm-hmm.
didn't see her. So I was the first person to see her.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember she was in her incubator. She was, doing her baby thing, crying and but, babies can't see when they first are
Mm-hmm.
born. So the dopest thing that's happened to me, I start talking to her. And it
Mm.
was like in that moment she recognized my voice and she just started looking for me and she just stopped crying. And I knew from that point that
Wow.
her and I were going to be like inseparable. Like when she was a baby, I
Wow.
used to hold her and she used to sleep in my heartbeat. When I be playing the game, she used to be right in my arm and shit. And so
Mm.
Kyla was always up under me,
Mm-hmm.
and she is stinking teenager now. We have our
I know. I'll be on the phone when
we
y'all be
have
beefing.
we have our beef or whatever, but we have a bond that as long as I'm here, like our bond will probably go on forever. Like, when we apart for a long time, me and her get separation anxiety. It's
Wow, that's
crazy.
dope.
It's
That's
crazy.
dope.
So it's like when she away from me for a long time, she'll call, Dad, I'm just checking on you. And she has my location and
Mm-hmm.
I'll when I'm missing her, I'll text her and say something corny, and then she'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, "Dad, it's not funny anymore. I'm not a baby." And I'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, and I used to say to her like little silly things like, "I remember you used to love this song," and I'll just bust out songs I used to sing to her when she was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll just start laughing, and she be like, "Dad, I'm not a kid anymore." And I'll just be like,
I mean,
So
I was
when
going, yeah,
go
go ahead.
ahead, what you about to say?
I mean, I was going through my separation and I came and stayed with you for a while, a couple months. She was like,
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Eminem, I just gotta
Mm-hmm.
ask you, when you leaving, cause you taking over my room, man. She was like, I need my room back. You gotta go. I like, I'm only gonna be here for a little while, nieces. I got some plans, but man, to see her grow up and just to see the role that you playing in her life, you know what I mean? That's one thing I can say about the guys I rock with. I don't really, even if we ain't as tight as we was before, I ain't really surround myself with a bunch of deadbeats, man. You know what I mean? I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
that blessing to have my own child, but the Most High allowed me to be able to help thousands of kids. But to see the relationship that you guys have is super dope, and to see that you stepped forward and did what you needed to do, because, like I said, many people in your situation would have used that as an excuse not to be responsible. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that's huge, and you shaping the kind of man that she's gonna want once that day comes for her to go down that aisle. Um, if you had a young fella sitting in front of you right now that was struggling with revisiting a trauma and things like that, what would you tell them? Like, what would you say? What kind of advice you would give them moving forward?
I would encourage them to first have a conversation with God about their trauma. Um,
Mm,
we have we're in an age to where we're in a right now we're in the moments to where, these young kids that's coming up nowadays don't have the foundation of God, right? And when
mm-hmm.
I mean the foundation of God, I'm talking about when you and I was coming up, you had summer camps, you had things to do in the summer when you was out of school,
Mm-hmm.
but you had vacation Bible school, right?
Facts.
Every hood had vacation Bible school.
Facts.
So there was a week or 2 weeks of time in every summer that everybody was in vacation Bible school.
Facts.
So you had a foundation of God in your life. These kids don't have that. And so now they're not spiritual kids. So even when they're out of pocket and they're doing wrong, they don't know how to rely on God. We
Mm-hmm.
had people encouraging us through God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even we can say it's false teachings. We can say that, for judgment or whatever, and every law wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
every religion that you look to, there's always a God, one God, right? We all
Mm-hmm.
serve one God under one master. No matter how we talk, we all serve one God. These kids don't understand the aspect of that. And we lost sight of
Mm.
that. We lost and they lost. So I will always tell the kid, listen, man, sometimes you gotta lean on yourself and you gotta just sit and humble yourself and have that conversation with God, because whether or
Mm.
not you hear him talk to you, he hears you
Mm-hmm.
and he communicates with you in different ways. He gives you
Mm-hmm.
different examples of, and he puts you in situations where he shows you your value. You
That's
understand
deep.
what I'm
That's
saying?
that's
So,
deep. That's deep. In closing, I want you to give some shout outs to the people that you feel helped you along your journey from your pain to purpose, brother.
mm, well, one person that I definitely got to shout out, I think I sent you a picture of her. Um, my grandmother, my grandma Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma, this is my dad's mother. Um, when my grandma Gladys my grandma Gladys was abusive over me. So it was a lot of people that my grandma Gladys ain't really rock with when it came to me. Her and my grandmother had that mutual respect. And when I was a kid, they had that conversation. And my grandmother said, look, I'm gonna be in his life, whether you
Mm-hmm.
like it or not. And wherever
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't with my grandma Gladys, I was with her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you know, man, through a lot of my pain, I would go sit and I would cry and I lay my head on her lap, and
Mm.
she always had the right thing to say. My cousin Fred said something, at her funeral, at her homegoing, to where, she governed us from her kitchen table. And
Mm.
these are facts. Like our grandmother, man, my grandma seen it all. My grandmother came here from Renault Rapids, North Carolina, and she all my uncles migrated from down there. They lived with her.
Mhm.
Aunts came up, stayed with her. So my grandmother held it down, and my grandmother was the glue to the wind side of the family, right? So, I remember my last conversation with my grandmother. This was a couple of years ago. So again, I dealt with death, and I remember our last conversation, and one of the things she asked me was, "Kyle, are you going to be okay?"
Mm.
She said, "Kyle, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And my grandmother died of a blood disease. It was a form of cancer, that took her out. My grandma never complained.
Mhm.
And our grandma was tough as nails. My grandma was like, I never let my grandmother see me cry when she was going through her process of transition. I never let her see her cry. So, everybody be at the hospital all sad and somber, including my dad or whatever. I busted the room. I said, "Get up out that bed." And my grandma just sit there shaking her head and just start smiling and laughing. She was like, "What is wrong
Mm.
with you?"
Mm.
And so my grandmother asked me, would I be okay? And I said, "Yeah, grandma, I'll be good." And she just, gave me instructions, and she, had my word. And then, we said our goodbyes. And then I watched my grandma take her last breath.
Wow. Wow. Who else?
Um,
Who else you would want to shout out?
um, Definitely, the Morrisons, Mr. and Mrs. Morrison,
So.
Um, definitely in debt to them. I always, let him know how much he mean to me and the things that he did for me, and I
Mhm.
appreciate it. It's Morrison too. Um, Man, Mr. Barfield, Faith Christian
Mm.
principal. Never
Mm.
forget him and Sean and Barbara Coleman. Everybody that's really, you know, helped me, and get to this place, man, to really, put me in a place to touch people, man. Can't gotta mention Khalik.
Mm.
Um, Khalik was there through a lot of my loss, a lot of my stuff. So,
Mm.
um, I definitely wouldn't be at this point of where I am, even like with the game of basketball, if it wasn't for him.
Mhm.
So, that goes, without saying, like, I miss him every day.
Mm.
Um, Him, all the friends, man, all the love, like you especially, like, you know, I I was probably one of your biggest support systems through your transition process.
Mm.
And I
Oh,
remember
facts.
times when your ass wanted to quit, and
Yeah.
I motherfucking threatened your ass like, "No, you not quitting. You ain't gonna be driving me crazy for the rest of my life. You got to get what you need." And
Yeah.
it's what you doing, bro, and like what you've been through. Because one of the things that you and I do share in common is we had one-on-one trauma. And
Mhm.
when I say one-on-one trauma, I mean your situation was a one-on-one. Like nobody could relate to what you had to deal with in your situation, and I had the same thing. So when you went through that, I was able to just be a friend and just be a support,
Facts.
because
Facts.
I know how that feel, to where everybody looking at you and it's like, dude, like, You know what I mean? Like they come up with their own conception of how things went down and how things are.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been that person, but I did that at a young age.
Wow.
You know
So
what I'm
God,
saying?
yeah,
So it
I
that
needed that too.
situation,
I
that
needed that too.
situation helped me, you know what I mean, be your support. And then you know with everything else you went through, it just didn't help me look at the situation and be like, yo, man, you wild. It just helped me be there for you as a brother.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? And you know, that's like I'll never go and brag. Like that ain't what I do. Like, like, bro, like, we said that we laugh about some of the things that, happened when you was there, things that I did, move alcohol, selling joints. Man, I get business, man. Let my boy be great. You know what I'm saying? Like we sit back and we laugh about
Yeah,
that.
indeed,
But it
indeed,
was to show you that I was genuinely support you as a brother, man. I respect, where you are and what you're doing, and you understanding your purpose is to really help each other, help, kids and doing what you're doing. So I would just say, stay on your path, man. It's your purpose. This is what God is calling you to do.
indeed,
So I encourage you to help people, that's in a state to where they're reaching out for help and they're screaming for help, but they don't know how.
indeed,
God puts us in position to motivate those because, we have the power to.
indeed.
So we got to use that power for good. So now when it's our time and we leave here, that we'll be pour into people and then people will be able to pour in, and that lives on and that keeps going on
100%.
and on and
That's
on
how
and
you.
on. You understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
that's how you live on, man. Man, I want to thank you for coming on, bro. How you feel, bro? First time sharing all of this in the public.
Uh,
Like, how you feel?
I'm cool. I'm
Okay,
cool.
okay,
I've been
okay.
at peace. Of course, you get emotional
Uh
about
huh. Uh
things
huh.
when you relive it.
Uh huh.
Um, but I'm in a space now, man, where I'm just trying to be a better man. I just want, to be a better father for my kid.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just want to anybody like this that's dealt with something that's in my circumstance. I don't think anybody hear them. Like if I'm in a position where I can help,
Mm-hmm.
like I want to do that. Help motivate and push people and just to keep encouraging folks, man, to just do the right thing and
You doing that right
especially
now,
the
brother.
kids.
You doing
Absolutely. So
you doing that right now, man. So, bro, I'm definitely gonna thank you again for coming on, bro. The stuff you talked about tonight, very transparent. I pray to the Most High that it touches somebody out there, to go visit their trauma, to turn that pain into a purpose, to understand that it's light at the end of that tunnel. That's where the whole transformation come at, bro. I want to thank you, man. Of course, we're gonna talk in the morning like we always do. You know what I'm saying? When we get off, I'm gonna wrap this thing up and send out to get the highlights done. And then we're gonna go from there, man. Thank you for coming on from Pain to Purpose, brother.
all right, no doubt, bro. Peace.
I love you, man.
Love you too. Peace.
Yeah, that was Kyle, man. Came on tonight, man. Wow, that touched me, man. Almost had me tearing up. Um, but he got on the other side of it. The Most High brought him through, and that's what we do from Pain to Purpose. And this is a invite to anybody out there that's going through their situations, man. This is the platform to come on and bring that testimony. That's what the Most High still got you here for, to bring that testimony so you could go out, so we could go out and help other people, man. And I always say this, you only got two things to do with your story. You either gonna use it as a testimony to help others, or you're gonna use it as an excuse to destroy yourself. So hit me up in my inbox, you know what I'm saying? I'll send you the form to fill out online, and then you could come on and give your testimony. This is Mike. Enjoy the rest of your night. Shalom.